Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Fezega Hlope, and today we are going to talk about neurodevelopmental disorders. This is my second segment towards learning about mental health disorders. So today we will firstly discuss and give a brief overview of what neurodevelopmental disorders are, and then we will get into a few hand-picked disorders to dive in deeper about, and that will include intellectual developmental disorder, stuttering, autism spectrum disorder, as well as ADHD. So, what are neurodevelopmental disorders? They are a group of disorders that start during the developmental period of a child's life, most likely before they start school. And they are based on, rather, due to the brain processes that are hindered or the hindered brain development of a child. And these lead to impairments in the social life of a kid, their academic performance, their personal life, as well as their occupational functioning. And neurodevelopmental disorders have been typically observed to co-occur with other disorders that are neurodevelopmental. For example, as you see on the slide, we have ASD and the co-occurrence with intellectual disability. But in addition to this, studies have also found that neurodevelopmental disorders also do oftenly co-occur with other types of disorders. As you can see, autism has been linked to the occurrence of anxiety. All right, so the first disorder we'll talk about is the intellectual developmental disorder, which is an impairment that onsets during the developmental period of a child, and this leads to deficits in reasoning, abstract thinking and learning, essentially just intellectual functioning. And secondly, this disorder is also characterized by a difficulty of a child meeting the societal needs or societal standards of what independence and responsibility is. This disorder is also known as intellectual disability. And moving over to the prevalence of intellectual developmental disorders, studies have shown that within the general overall population, there's a prevalence of 10 per 1,000, and that this disorder rather is more prevalent in girls than in boys, and more in the youth, than it is to adults. However, I found this very interesting that the prevalence of this disorder varies depending on the level of development of the country. So, in middle income countries, the overall prevalence is 16 to 1,000, whereas in high income countries the prevalence is 9 to 1,000, which raised the question to me whether this is related to maybe perhaps the access to early childhood interventions that are available in the specified countries. All right, so now we'll move over to stuttering, the next disorder. Stuttering is defined as the persistent disturbance to the normal flow and fluency of speech, which is abnormal for the individual's age and their language skills. All right, so the diagnostic criteria of stuttering includes sound and syllable repetitions. As you can see on the slide, we have boy, sound prolongations, as you can see in the slide. Word production incites physical tension. So this is when the child or whoever the patient struggles. You can see the physical tension or the struggling in trying to produce the words. Also importantly, word speech and word production should incite anxiety within the person, and this disability or deficit rather should incite or start during the child's early childhood development, and that there is no other explanation for the child's speech disturbance. So moving over to the prevalence of stuttering, the onset typically starts between the ages of 2 to 7, and the peak age is around 5. And approximately 1% of children do experience stuttering at one point or another. It is more common in males than it is in females, with the ratio ranging from 2:1 to 4:1. So this in essence means that for every 2 to 4 boys that experience stuttering, there is one girl that does experience stuttering as well. And studies have seen that the prevalence of stuttering does decrease with age due to a higher rate of spontaneous recovery, brain recovery. So now we're going to watch a short video that I've selected, and we'll meet afterwards.
Stuttering is when my words get stuck, like I just did.
Stuttering is not something that you can help. It's something that just comes along with some people.
I get worried, like what other people might think if I do stutter.
Kids should ignore the people who tease them about stuttering because it's not their fault.
I worry about it when, like, I'm on S words, and they always get me stuck on stuff, on word with an S at the beginning.
Alright, so moving over to ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder. So Autism Spectrum Disorder is defined as the persistent difficulty in social communication and interaction, along with restricted and repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, or activities. Symptoms of these include persistent deficits in social communication and interaction with others. This is the first group. So symptoms include the child's deficit in being able to maintain a conversation, being able to share interests with others, or being able to ask or initiate conversation with others, or being able to play with other kids at school. So yes, deficits in social emotional reciprocity, nonverbal communication deficits as well, not being able to understand gestures and non-communicative behaviors that we typically use in communicating with each other. They also have a deficit and problem in developing and maintaining relationships. As I said, they have a problem with initiating conversation. This does not necessarily mean that they do not want or wish to communicate with others or to share interests with others. It's just a deficit in them taking the ownership to initiate the conversation or the interaction. Then secondly, symptoms also include restricted repetitive patterns of behavior or interests or activities. We have here that they have a stereotypical way of movement or using objects or speech as well. So typically some of the students or some children have, the hand flapping. They illustrate hand flapping or spinning or rocking back and forth. They also have an irrational or an abnormal way of using objects. So if a child perhaps is playing with a car, right, you'd obviously expect the child to push the car on the floor, but perhaps you might find that a child actually turns the car around and spins the wheel, or maybe is more interested in spinning the wheel instead of playing with the car as you more typically would expect a child to play with the car. Insistence on sameness, so they are highly fixated on routines, on things that are the same. They have restricted fixated interests. So you might find that children that are on the spectrum maybe limited or have a narrow interest. Some may be interested in dinosaurs, and once they're fixated and highly restricted in those interests, they have an in-depth understanding of whatever topic it is. So if it's trains, they will know everything about trains. They will know the historical trains. They will know like future trains, present trains. So whatever it is that they're interested in and fixated in becomes like they know so much about it. Moving onwards towards the other symptoms, the symptoms have to be present during the early childhood developmental period, and that these symptoms must cause a significant impairment in the child's social life, maybe playing with other kids, their occupational abilities, or maybe even academic abilities. And especially for this, that the disturbances are not better explained by intellectual disability, which is what I just spoke about right now. So we are going to watch a few videos that I have selected to illustrate or to kind of for you to visualize some of these symptoms that kids manifest. So from my experience, I've experienced the hand flapping, the twisting, stimmings, audio stimming, like tapping or biting, and yeah. So you will see some of these early childhood signs in one of the video, and in the second video, you'll be able to see the child's point of view, right? You will notice in the video that the child is extremely sensitive to audio stimuli, visual stimulus, to the point where it's overwhelming for the child. You'll also notice that in the video, what the child would do is start counting to 10 as a means to kind of reground himself towards himself, to kind of de-escalate or kind of bring himself back to himself. And you will notice that the boy is quite older, and as he enters the supermarket or the mall, he is holding a stuffed toy, which you might think is a bit abnormal for a child of his age. This is also part of their restricted interests, which a child will be so strictly interested in one specific object, and they don't diversify their interests to other objects. In the first video, you'll see that the child is, or the baby girl is, interested in the toothbrush, and yes, in the second one, you'll see that the boy is holding a stuffed dinosaur, what appears to be a stuffed dinosaur to me.
Early signs of autism in toddlers that are easily overlooked: toe walking and hand flapping, always jumping, spinning in circles, head shaking, communicating through hand bleeding, having certain routines that are repeated daily, like jumping with her teething tablets, restricted and repetitive interests and activities. Madison is obsessed with toothbrushes. She always plays in very repetitive ways. Remember, these signs point to autism due to the frequency and repetitiveness.
Two, three, four, five, 6, 7, 8, 9. Take my hand.
No, Alex. It's fine, I'm not naughty. I'm autistic. And I just get too much information.
Alright, so moving over to the prevalence of ASD. As per the DSM-5 revision, there is an estimated approximation of 1:53 children in the United States of America, with the estimated ratio of male to female, where of course ASD is more common in males than in females, whereas the global ratio is estimated towards being 3:1, and the general consensus or understanding is that this is due to the under recognition of ASD symptoms in women and in girls. So now we will move over to ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. This is a neurodevelopmental disorder which is characterized by a persistent pattern of inattention and or hyperactivity, which should interfere with functionality or functioning or development. Symptoms here are grouped into two categories, and the first category is inattention. And please note that six or more of these symptoms are for children up to the age 16, whereas only 5 or more for adolescents or adults. And these symptoms have to be present for approximately at least minimum of 6 months. These include forgetfulness, poor attention to details, making mistakes, being easily distracted by external stimuli, not being able to listen when spoken to directly, difficulty in sustaining attention in tasks that or activities that require attention, not being able to follow through with instructions, whether it's chores or duties or schoolwork. Yeah, I had a student who had this, who exhibited such symptoms. When it came to giving assignments or tests, he would just really just shut down, and he felt too pressured by time, and he couldn't follow up with instructions, and this wasn't explained by his inability to follow instructions or inability to understand the content. He knew very well what the content was, what was expected of him, but having to follow through with the instructions or the activity proved difficult. Secondly, we have the hyperactivity or impulsiveness. Same thing here. The symptoms have to be present for at least minimum of 6 months, and this is manifested as being fidgety, tapping hands and feet, squirming on the carpet, squirming on the seat, leaving the seat when it's not expected to, running about in appropriate situations, not being able to engage in activities in a silent manner, often seeming to be on the go or being like driven by a motor, talking excessively, not being able to wait for his or her turn, blurting out answers before the question is even completed, and being interruptive. So going back to my student, he was extremely fidgety on the carpet, and he was highly fixated on Minecraft, and he was really good when it came to drawing. He was really good when it came to kind of structuring or drawing structures in a mathematical way, but holding attention was difficult for him, as well as squirming. Being able to sit still was difficult. I worked in a school where we would have circle time in the morning or just before lessons, just to kind of give an introduction to the lesson and the objectives of the lesson, and we would typically sit in a circle, teachers as well as the students. But for him, sitting still or crossing, of course you're not supposed to be extremely stern, but it was too difficult for him. So he would squirm, stand up, or find himself just laying on the carpet, full lay on the carpet. And so yes, that is just a little intel on my experience as well. So moving over to the prevalence of ADHD, amongst children and adolescents, there is an approximation of 5% within children worldwide, whereas in the US it's around 7%. ADHD is more frequently diagnosed in boys than girls, with the ratio being 2:1. So for every 2 boys diagnosed with ADHD, there is one student or a female student being diagnosed. Boys are typically found to present with hyperactivity and impulsive symptoms, whereas girls, on the other hand, commonly present with inattention symptoms, and sometimes they may go undiagnosed, such as mentioned in the ASD previously. Then when it comes to adults, ADHD does seem to be persistent from childhood towards adulthood, only in 60% of the cases, and the estimated prevalence in adults is 2.5%, and the symptoms may manifest a little bit more subtly when it comes to adults, such as restlessness instead of being hyperactive. All right, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and please do feel welcome to reach out to me for any questions that you may have. Here's my email address, and my LinkedIn profile is down below. Please feel free to contact me. I would love us to engage in this. If you're interested in this, whatever questions you may have, I really do enjoy and appreciate feedback that I receive from you guys. And also, I do have to state that with my previous video, I did receive feedback, positive criticism as well, which makes me so happy. But again, thank you so much for your engagement and your feedback. I hope this was interesting for you and informative. That's it for today. Take care. Goodbye.